Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Westerhoff.
I'm Sarah Bernard.
I'm Samantha Molesky.
And I'm Morgan Vaughn.
And today we're going to talk to you about our group replication project, where we looked at the effects of white noise on off-task behavior. Sam is just pulling up our PowerPoint for you guys now. So our original study that we chose to replicate was conducted in 2014 by Cook, Bradley Johnson, and Johnson. Their study used 3 participants who were students with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and they evaluated the effects of white noise on white noise played through headphones specifically on off-task behavior. They also looked at the percentage of items completed and the percentage of items completed correctly on an independent assignment. In the study, they looked at 3 types of off-task behavior, which was verbal off-task, motor off-task, and passive off-task, and we did the same thing in our replication study. So the authors found that the white noise intervention with the white noise playing through the headphones produced decreases in off-task behavior in all 3 participants, but the intervention did not affect the participants' academic responding. While we were looking at literature related to our original article, we noticed some things and we also found some considerations. So overall, there is a lack of research that uses white noise specifically as an intervention. And then those studies that do evaluate white noise as an intervention don't necessarily examine the effects of white noise on off-task behavior or related behaviors. The majority of research available also utilizes group designs instead of single case research designs. Also, there are safety recommendations that need to be considered when a practitioner is implementing interventions that utilize headphones and auditory components due to the noise levels that can accompany this type of intervention. Practitioners also need to consider the use of these types of interventions in certain situations, because there are situations where wearing headphones is unacceptable or unpractical. So that is definitely something that practitioners need to consider when they're using white noise and headphone interventions. The first study that we looked at was conducted in 2007 by Soderlund, Sickstrom, and Smart. So the authors conducted a study with 42 children who were age 9 to 13. Some of the participants had ADHD and others did not, and they served as the control group. The study was conducted in the participant schools, and the authors examined the external auditory noise on children's performance on an episodic recall task. And the result of this study was that the authors found an increase in performance on the task in the noise condition for the participants with ADHD. On the other hand, they found that the participants without ADHD actually had a decrease in performance on their task in the noise condition. So in this study by Soderlund, Sickstrom, and Smart, they discussed some other studies that looked at white noise interventions. So the first one was conducted in 1993 by Baker and Holding, which demonstrated the enhancing effects of white noise on short-term memory tasks. Also in 1989, Harrison and Kelly found that white noise improved performance in elderly and young participants on simple addition tasks. And then finally, a study by Carlson, Rama, Arkachov, and Linikowski in 1997 found that white noise improved monkeys' performances on a delayed task experiment. We also looked at a more recent study that was conducted in 2012 by Saylor, Seidner, Reeve, Featherstone and Progar. So these authors actually used a study that was conducted much earlier in 1984 by Aiken and Salzberg. And that study found that continuous white noise was an effective intervention for individuals with developmental disabilities for decreasing their vocal stereotypy. So Saylor, Seidner, Reeve, Featherstone, and Progar in 2012 evaluated the effect of 3 different types of noise, which was music, self-recordings of the participants' vocal stereotypies, and white noise on vocal stereotypy in 2 children with autism. So unlike the original study by Aiken and Salzberg in 1984, the white noise was not an effective intervention for decreasing the participants with autism's vocal stereotypy. And similar to other research that we have looked into, that implement interventions with white noise, the findings are inconsistent between the 2 studies. And we found that in some other research that we've looked at. And as you'll see, we found similar results in our replication project.
Okay. So now the purpose of the study was to see if there was a correlation between off-task behavior and white noise when completing independent work. Now the participants for this replication project was with 4 graduate students from Ball State University, myself, Morgan, Elizabeth, and Sam. The setting took place at the participant's home, where we then collected the data and also recorded, as well as to complete the permanent product recording. Now for the materials. We use a computer to complete our permanent product, the quizzes, as well as IOA. The participants, which was us, that we also use over-the-head headphones, which we all use different kinds of headphones, different brand headphones, but over the head. We then use a white noise application that we then determined which type of noise we would all agree on. And then we use a timer on an Apple product where we would use it to start the interval and then show when to complete. And then we use a checklist to ensure the treatment fidelity was done. Now Liz will explain operational definition.
Thanks, Sarah. So as we mentioned before, the original study by Cook, Bradley, Johnson, and Johnson looked at off-task behavior in 3 specific types, which was verbal off-task, motor off-task, and passive off-task. We wanted to keep consistent with this in our replication study, so we wrote an operational definition that would meet our needs, but also consisted of the verbal off-task, motor off-task, and passive off-task. So first is the verbal off-task, and that was pretty much defined as talking to anyone, including housemates, pets, husbands, partners, talking on the phone for a conversation. We also included that if you're talking on the phone, even though you are not engaged in the talking at the moment, that would be scored at off-task, as off-task, or engaging in any other types of vocalizations like singing, any type of vocal stereotypy, anything that was not related to the independent assignment. Then we also talked about motor off-task, which was defined as standing or walking while not attending to the independent assignment. What we did not include in this part of the definition was if someone was engaged in the assignment while they were standing or walking, but anytime they were not attending to the independent assignment, it would be, and walking or moving, it would be scored as motor off-task. Also, we looked at passive off-task. So that was engaging in any other activity besides the behavior, well, besides the independent assignment, or behaviors that were defined in verbal off-task and motor off-task. So this would include texting, checking Facebook, going on the iPad, so anything that was off task. But we did not include in the definition if you were taking notes, if you were drinking water, biting your nails, twirling your hair, similar behaviors to that. And we did utilize self-recording data. So if the participant was scoring the data, that was not counted as off-task behavior. So now I'll talk about our data collection procedures. So data was collected on off-task behavior using momentary time sampling procedures. And we used 15-minute sessions during the independent work assignment that was broken into 1-minute intervals. So to collect the data, all participants use the clock app on an Apple product to indicate the end of the interval. And at the end of the interval, the participant actually reset the timer immediately to ensure equal intervals. And then immediately following that, scored which type of off-task behavior they were engaged in. Our off-task behavior is presented as percentage of intervals off-task on each participant's graph. We also collected data, permanent product data on Cooper quizzes, and that was collected weekly on the first attempt of the textbook quizzes for each participant. So we had 15 minutes to complete the Cooper quizzes, and a timer was started at the beginning of the quiz. And when the quiz was ended or the participant finished the quiz before the time was up, we screenshotted the quiz for IOA purposes and permanent product recording collection. Off-task behavior was not collected during the quizzes, but the conditions that were being implemented were followed during those quizzes. And then the quizzes are summarized on our graphs as percentage of items answered correctly, and that's indicated on all our graphs. This is an example of the momentary time sampling data sheet that we used for off-task behavior. And this is the permanent product data tracker that we wrote down the quiz chapter, the date, the condition that we were currently in, the number of questions completed, the total number of questions, and our accuracy. And then we also use this to track our IOA for all of the Cooper quizzes. So the research design that we utilized for our replication study was an ABC withdrawal design. And this was the exact research design that was used in the original study by Cook, Bradley, Johnson, and Johnson in 2014.
So for the baseline procedure, was in the withdrawal ABAC conditions, the participants, which was us, would read our Cooper book, and during that time, we were given a 15-minute session where we would start the timer and then stop the timer. At that moment, the timer went off. We then indicated if we were on or off task. If we were off task, we were given a plus. If we were on task, then we were given a minus. Now, during the baseline condition, there was no other change in our environment, such as wearing the headphones or listening to white noise. So we were just reading the textbook. When we were finished with our reading, we then took baseline on the Cooper quiz for the first time. For the first time, we took the quiz. Then we screenshot the results when we took the quiz and we completed it the first time. We then continued to take baseline data until a steady rate was showed, and then when there was a steady rate, we then went on to the new condition. Now, for the baseline condition, you'll see in our results that some people use baseline as 5 sessions or more. So they're all different based off of our steady rate.
So for the intervention, it was implemented just like baseline, where there were 15-minute sessions with 1-minute intervals. The only difference was that after completion of the baseline A, the participants first implemented the condition B, which was using headphones only without white noise, until a steady trend was produced with that. And then they went on to condition C, which was the headphones plus white noise. All white noise was played through the headphones at 50% volume or 8 clicks on the volume key. And then upon completion of the first 15-minute session per chapter read, the participants completed the online textbook quiz for the corresponding chapter as their permanent product recording and screenshotted the results of their first attempt to be submitted for IOA.
Our inter-observer agreement procedures were as follows. So the inter-observer agreement for off-task behavior was calculated for at least 20% of the sessions. In the original study that we're replicating, they collected IOA for 20% of the sessions. This is typically less than what you would collect IOA for if you were doing an original study, but we wanted to try to keep it as close to the original study as possible. We use 2 different types of inter-observer agreement. We use interval by interval IOA for our off-task behavior. So these were the sessions that we recorded while we were reading our Cooper chapters, and we collected data on how the number of intervals in which the observers agreed on the type of off-task behavior that occurred. So this would be passive or verbal or motor, and then divided that by the total number of intervals. We use trial by trial IOA for the permanent product data, and the permanent product data, it was collected for 100% of the time. 2 independent observers coded the permanent product data. The IOA formulas that we used are listed below. To control for treatment fidelity, before all the conditions that were implemented in the study, the participants were given a checklist. This checklist listed all of the steps that the participants needed to complete in order to facilitate the correct implementation of the procedure. All participants were given a copy of the checklist that they were able to use throughout the study. All participants kept their headphones on throughout all sessions in conditions B and C. B being headphones only and C being white noise in the headphones. All of the participants used over-the-head headphones for this experiment. We did use different brands of headphones, but they were all over-the-head headphones and not earbuds. For the permanent product data, the assignment type remained consistent across all conditions, and those were the Cooper chapter quizzes. This is the checklist that was given to all participants to use throughout the study. And now we will begin with our results.
So as you see with my graph, you see the squares representing the Cooper quiz, which I'm looking under the baseline phase. And then you see the circles, which are off-task behavior. And you will see these shapes represent the same for the other participants in the study as well. During the baseline off-task behavior, I had a stability where I was then off-task about 7% of the time. But then as I move on to the next phase, the headphones-only phase, I was off-task, but then I was able to stay consistent and with a steady rate of 0% off task. As I moved on to the headphones with white noise, I was steady at 0%. Then I again showed a condition where I peaked to be off task, but then I was able to get back on track and stay off task. And then same for baseline, going back to the baseline, again with no noise or with headphones. I then again was able to have a steady rate of 0, but I did peak in this time to a little bit more. But then I was able to go back with stability and go to 0%. And then as you see with headphones and white noise, I was able to go straight to having that steady rate where I am at 0%. Now you will see with the other participants as well with the baseline that are off task did not have an effect on the permanent product results. As you see with my average and range, during the baseline off task, my average was around 2%, where the range was 0 to 7%. Looking at the headphones off task, the average was 1.17%, and the range was again there was that consistency of 0 to 7%. With the next phase, headphones with white noise and off task, the average was 1%. And then again, as you see, there's that the consistency throughout all phases. The range was 0 to 7%. And then with the second baseline, the average was 1.90%, which was increased a little bit. And then the range of all tasks was 0 to 13%. And then the final phase, you see that my average with headphones was 0 as well with the range. Then you see that there's my IOA information as we all got 100%. And next, Sam will present her results.
So for my results, in the baseline, you can see my off-task behavior was pretty high. My average was around 29% of the time that I was off task. My range was from 0 to 46%. Moving into the headphones stage after I had some stability in my baseline, you can see that my off-task behavior decreased significantly. My average and range were both 0% during the headphones only phase. After that, I went to the headphones with white noise. And for the most part, I was able to stay on task. You can see that a lot of my sessions were at 0%, but I did have one session where I was slightly off task. My average off task for the headphones with white noise was about 3%, my range being 0 to 13%. In my second, my return to baseline, you can see that I did return to baseline levels in my baseline 2. My off-task behavior increased to an average of about 46%, and my range being 40 to 60%. And then I went back to headphones with white noise, and as you can see, I started off a little off-task and was able to decrease my off-task behavior. My average for this phase was about 4% off-task, and 0 to 20% off-task was my range. Like Sarah said, you can see that the white noise had no effect on the permanent product data in baseline. This is just some more detailed information on my average and range, including my permanent product data. And this is my IOA, which shows that I was able to achieve 100% IOA for all of my sessions and permanent product data. And now for Morgan's results.
As you can see for my graph, other than the very first session with headphones only, the only times that I was off task was in my very first baseline. I had very stable results throughout the very first baseline, so I was able to move on quickly. And then it persisted through the first session of headphones only, and then from there on throughout the entire study, I had 0% off task. So it did not seem to have a real effect with me. So my ranges and averages were all 0 from the white noise to the baseline 2 and the white noise 2. And as you can see also, the off-task behavior did not have an effect on my Cooper quizzes. Yes, so my baseline off-task average was about 8% or around 9%. And then the range was from 0 to 13%, which was the highest that I had. Then the headphones only off-task average was around 1% with a range of 0 to 7%. And then from then on throughout the study, everything was a 0% for off-task averages and ranges. And then you also see the percentage correct average and ranges that I have as well. And for IOA, I was able to achieve 100% IOA as well.
So now we're looking at my graph. So similar to Sam, during my baseline condition, baseline 1, my off-task behavior was quite high, with an average of around 25%, and the range being 20 to 33%. And then once I moved into the headphones only condition, I was still quite off task, with an average of about 17% and the range being 13 to 20%, but my off-task behavior did decrease. Then I moved into the white noise 1 condition, and my off-task behavior continued to decrease even more. So my average was 4.5% with a range from 0 to 13%. And then I went back to baseline 2, but as you can see, I did not return to baseline levels of responding. My off-task average actually continued to decrease, and it was 2.2%, with a range being the same as the white noise 1, 0, 13%. And then white noise 2, excuse me, my off-task behavior decreased even further to 0%, and the range was 0%. And as Sarah mentioned, in all conditions, my percentage correct on the Cooper quizzes were not affected by the intervention. Again, here's just an average and range that I just talked about, but a more in-detailed, in-depth look at my averages and ranges for also the percentage correct on the Cooper quizzes. And then similar to everyone else, I did get 100% IOA for all of my sessions, including Cooper quiz, the Cooper quizzes, and off-task behavior sessions. Now Morgan will talk about the conclusions.
Similar to the original study conducted by Cook, Bradley, Johnson & Johnson, our academic responding did not change while the white noise and headphone conditions were in effect across all 4 of us. And also, we saw a reduction in off-task behavior from the levels demonstrated in the first baseline condition, but the baseline levels of responding did not occur for 3 of the 4 participants in the baseline 2 condition, which were Sarah, myself, and Elizabeth. But 1 participant, Samantha, was able to see a significant reduction in off-task behavior in both the headphones only and white noise conditions.
These are the limitations that we had for our project. So the white noise may have eliminated any auditory stimuli that would have been a discriminative stimuli for off-task behavior. So this means that while we were in conditions B or C with the headphones, with or without the white noise, with the white noise especially, it could have diminished the outside noises that you hear when you are performing a task, such as someone walking in the room and telling you something, or hearing the TV, or hearing your phone ring. Without the headphones and the white noise, that would have most likely been a discriminative stimuli for you to be off task. Our data was self-recorded, so there is not a way for us to say with 100% certainty that we were all honest in our data recording. We only have the recorded IOA sessions to look at that. The behavior of the participants may have been affected by the fact that we recorded IOA sessions and they were going to be watched by peers. When we were recording the sessions for IOA, we may have been triggered to be more on task due to the fact that we knew that a peer was going to watch us perform an academic activity. Before the start of the study, there was no functional analysis that was conducted to interpret the function of our off-task behavior. So there's no way to interpret the behavior mechanisms that could account for the effects that the white noise had on our off-task behavior. This just means that if our off-task behavior was maintained by attention, that the white noise could have served as an abolishing operation for the attention that we seek from our off-task behavior. If our off-task behavior was maintained by our escape from the task, the white noise could have decreased the value of escaping from the task. We did choose to modify a lower prevalence behavior in our participants, which could have affected our overall behavior change. And most of the studies that we looked at used white noise interventions with individuals with developmental disabilities and ADHD. And our participant characteristics varied from these populations. So this also could have had an effect on our results. And this concludes our presentation. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed it.